And Kyler makes the Vikings immediate contender.
Well, the first thing is this. If you bring in Kyler, you're pretty much admitting you're done with J.J. McCarthy.
Correct.
Like, we talked about Aaron Rodgers. He could easily be there for one season. McCarthy learns under him, and then McCarthy's starting in a year. Kyler could just go there and not play well, and then McCarthy somehow is still in the mix. But what this would say to McCarthy is, we're done with you. And look, in fairness, he has not delivered, and being hurt more than half of his time there is part of not delivering. You've just been hurt. So even though he's only had 10 games, he hasn't played well enough to get an attitude, but it would be saying, you may not be long for this league or this organization, certainly. So that if they go get Kyler, they got to know the message we're sending to JJ. That said, if they get Kyler, look, we all can think about his great highlights. He made 2 Pro Bowls, I think legitimately his second and third years in the league. But in 7 years in the league, I guess you can say 6 healthy, he made the playoffs once. And he had 1 winning season in Arizona. Now, they never had a top 10 defense. He never made them a top 10 offense either, but they never had a top 10 defense. He would have that with Minnesota. I am not going to say contender. He still would be likely the worst quarterback in that division. Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, and Jared Goff, right?
Maybe.
So, unless Caleb does not take a leap and then doesn't have all those extra, supernatural comebacks, but he likely is the worst quarterback in that division. Now, they had that this year and won 9 games. So I think they will be a playoff contender. Could maybe make a run and get into the playoffs. I'll be a little bit hesitant to say Super Bowl contender.
Go, KW.
One day I was driving my car. I made some bad decisions. I said, you know what? I can get to the middle of Connecticut on just a little bit of gas. And next thing you know, my car shuts off. I was in a Prius at the time.
Prius, you don't need gas.
You do need a little bit of gas. It wasn't all electric a long time ago.
All right.
The car is now dead. And I get off the exit and start rolling down. I said, I am in a bad spot here. I take a right because I see it's downhill. There is a downhill slope for 3 miles until there's a gas station. I pull in and fill up, and I said, you know what? I made a series of bad decisions, and look what I lucked into. That's the Minnesota Vikings with Kyler Murray. You have made bad decision on Sam Darnold. You made a bad decision on J.J. McCarthy. You made a bad decision letting Daniel Jones walk. And all of a sudden, number 1 pick, Kyler Murray, can fall into our lap for the league minimum. This is an obvious must sign. And I understand that, I'm not sure I said he can hang with everybody in that division. Now, you could say he's the worst.
If he plays
maybe he is.
at his highest level.
But he can hang. He can hang.
No, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
I think he can hang. I think him and Caleb, they can hang. Him and Goff can hang together. He's a number 1 pick who has shown that he can string together 10 wins in a row.
No, hold on.
That happened.
He's accurate. He has a cannon.
Guys,
and he can move.
He's had some good years.
Okay, he's 29 in a couple months.
Okay.
He's 2 months older than Darnold. He's not a young player. He's not an untested player. He has 10 more career starts than Joe Burrow. He has, when we look at these guys that are reclamations, Darnold got 38 starts with the Jets. Geno got 30 in his career before Seattle, and he was out in the wilderness for a long time. Baker, it feels like he was with the Browns for a while, 59. He's at 87. We know exactly who Kyler Murray is.
He went to the playoffs.
I think
hold on. 40% of the league goes to the playoffs every year.
Well, I'm just saying it's not comparable to if Sam Darnold took the Jets to the playoffs.
No, but Baker went to the playoffs.
Yeah,
Baker
that was
went
a sign that he could pop.
He is, none of us at this table think he's one of the 20 best quarterbacks in a 32 quarterback league.
I believe Dan Orlovsky articulated it most effectively several days ago. The concept of Kyler Murray landing with the Minnesota Vikings is interesting to me, but it is not something I would endorse wholeheartedly. My reservation stems from a fundamental mismatch. The offensive identity Kevin O'Connell seeks to establish does not align with the style of football Kyler Murray excels at. Furthermore, there is legitimate uncertainty surrounding Murray's capacity for genuine growth, evolution, and adaptation at this stage of his career. Travis made an observation that I genuinely regret not including in my previous video, particularly because Nick had suggested Murray could benefit from joining the Rams, learning under Matthew Stafford's tutelage regarding film study and professional preparation. Travis's retort was incisive. After 8 seasons in the league, if a player hasn't already internalized those habits and disciplines, what exactly are we discussing at this point? The metaphor about leading a horse to water proves apt. You cannot force consumption. Perhaps there is a psychological dimension to this phenomenon, which Nick touched upon briefly, and it represents a topic I find genuinely fascinating to explore. Consider the psychology of sustained success without commensurate failure. Losing facilitates transformation. Failure catalyzes growth in ways that victory simply cannot replicate. When you experience defeat, you confront an imperative: evolve, develop, adapt. This is survival of the fittest in practice. Perpetual winning alone does not force introspection or change. If anything, unbroken success risks cultivating a detachment from reality. Evolution occurs through losses, through genuine struggle. Perhaps this framework explains Kyler Murray's trajectory. Consequently, if a team can acquire him for the reported league minimum, and if that organization possesses the necessary infrastructure and confidence in its ability to maximize his talents, then bringing him into the building carries some merit. However, the notion that Murray could function equivalently to someone like Jared Goff within Minnesota's system requires examination. Place Jared Goff on the Vikings, or alternatively install Kyler Murray in that same offense, and the results would be dramatically different. Kevin O'Connell would enthusiastically embrace a quarterback with Jared Goff's skill set. That prototype represents precisely what his offensive scheme demands. This same reasoning explains my skepticism regarding the speculative connection between Lamar Jackson and the Minnesota Vikings. That style of quarterback play simply does not align with the Vikings' offensive vision. Now, I hesitate to hold Murray's past too rigidly against him, given the organizational instability characterizing his tenure with the Arizona Cardinals. Context matters significantly. I do acknowledge there is genuine utility in having a player of Kyler Murray's caliber on your roster. Nevertheless, as this broader conversation unfolds, I believe we are developing a deeper appreciation for offensive coaching acumen. The league experienced a period of intense fascination with identifying the next Patrick Mahomes, the next Josh Allen, the next Lamar Jackson. These quarterbacks supposedly proved that hypermobile, physically gifted signal callers could authentically win championships. The implication was that the era of traditional pocket passers like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, or Drew Brees was concluding. If you operated primarily from the pocket, you were increasingly viewed as a dinosaur facing obsolescence. However, observing how contemporary offensive coaches actually prefer to construct their systems reveals something instructive. Given the choice between a hypermobile quarterback who thrives off-script versus a pure pocket distributor, I believe most would select the latter. They would choose a Jared Goff archetype. They would select a Jordan Love prototype. The evidence increasingly points in this direction. Let me be clear. Improvisational ability, mobility, and spectacular off-platform plays carry undeniable value. We witnessed this with Caleb Williams throughout the recent postseason. However, we simultaneously observe the consequences when decision-making falters and when offensive execution fails to meet the highest standards. Sam Darnold's improvisational magic did not deliver a Super Bowl victory. Patrick Mahomes' off-script heroics could not salvage the Chiefs' fortunes in critical moments. Josh Allen's remarkable athleticism did not ultimately prevail. Lamar Jackson's unique skill set encountered similar limitations. This brings us back to the pendulum metaphor we have previously discussed. The league swung dramatically toward mobile quarterbacks, embracing the notion that greater mobility necessarily meant greater potential. Coaches supposedly finally possessed the tools to maximize these athletic quarterbacks. Yet, I suspect we are now trending toward equilibrium. You do not want your quarterback to possess Jared Goff's limited mobility. However, you also may not want a quarterback whose first instinct is to escape the pocket and create outside structure. The emerging prototype might resemble someone like Drake May, capable of running, able to create with his legs when necessary, but fundamentally oriented toward operating from the pocket and distributing the football. The athleticism exists as a supplementary weapon rather than the primary mechanism. Brock Purdy exemplifies this balance. Jordan Love has shown flashes of this approach, though his injury history makes definitive assessment difficult. One season, he avoided running entirely. The following year, he incorporated more designed and improvisational runs. Justin Herbert similarly demonstrates this balanced approach. The ideal quarterback profile centers on authentic pocket presence, genuine distribution skills, executing the offense as designed, functioning as a point guard who delivers the ball to playmakers within the structure of the scheme. Mobility enhances this capability when pressure forces him from the pocket, enabling throws on the run or scrambles for crucial yardage. This archetype increasingly represents the quarterback template. Even Patrick Mahomes, in popular imagination, often grouped with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, actually operated differently throughout his career. The past season required him to rely more heavily on his athleticism, and the physical toll became evident. That is not sustainable, nor should it be the expectation moving forward. Returning to Kyler Murray, acquiring him means potentially investing in a quarterback archetype that may be becoming somewhat dated relative to where the league is heading. Murray, alongside Deshaun Watson and others, was initially positioned as the next evolution. They were supposed to represent the future before Mahomes fully emerged and redefined expectations. Then Lamar Jackson arrived, followed by Josh Allen, cementing the perception that this quarterback model represented the NFL's trajectory. The assumption became that any approximation of these players would suffice. I am increasingly unconvinced this holds true. Murray would likely improve the Vikings compared to alternative options. He is entertaining to watch. However, I am reminded of Kevin Wilde's analogy about the off-ramp and gasoline. Yes, you might reach the gas station rather than being stranded on the highway. You avoided immediate catastrophe, but the underlying vehicle remains fundamentally compromised. The fuel gauge proved inaccurate, misleading you about your actual reserves. Reaching the gas station does not constitute a long-term solution. That framework captures my perspective on Kyler Murray to Minnesota. It represents my analysis. I am genuinely eager to hear your perspectives. What do you think about the Minnesota Vikings potentially acquiring Kyler Murray? Would this move establish them as legitimate contenders? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single response, regardless of whether you agree with my assessment or disagree entirely. Either way, let's generate meaningful discussion, engage in spirited debate, but ultimately ensure we are enjoying the conversation. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We are cultivating an exceptional community here, and I would genuinely welcome your participation. My objective is to create something we all feel authentically connected to, something we are genuinely excited to be part of. I believe we are making substantial progress toward that goal. Remember to give this video a thumbs up, as it genuinely supports visibility and algorithmic reach. Thank you sincerely. I will see you in the next video.